what makes your USP a USP is how you're standing out and positioning with it. And stand out is not necessarily, everybody in the industry is doing videos, so I would do audio. No. Stand out is saying, even though everyone in the industry is doing videos or everyone in the industry has like a website, right? I'm going to make people not just understand what I'm doing, but why I'm doing it and see it as a movement.
Having a personal brand is very great, but it's also important to know the hows and the whys around it. Today in the studio, I have Deborah Ijeoma, a launch strategist and a woman of many parts. So I would leave her to tell you everything you need to know about owning a personal brand. So over to you. Welcome, Deborah.
Hi, Toby. So nice to be here.
Pleasure. This
amazing conversation.
You're welcome.
These are the kind of conversations that
I know it brings your energy up, right? Okay, so let's get right into it. Want to talk about personal branding? How should we even start? As it relates to personal branding, what are the key elements that we should focus on in building a brand?
So most times everyone likes to dance around, why personal brand, 4 ways, 4 hows, what to do and what not to do. But then I think first of all, we miss out on the fact that everyone has a personal brand. Whether you're doing anything or not doing anything, the woman in the street that sells moi moi, she doesn't necessarily have like a website or some landing page or some CV on LinkedIn, right? But then she has that personality, she has that image. When you think of her, when you think of your Saturday morning breakfast, you think of her, right? Now, since everyone has a personal brand, it's now left for you, in the words of someone I really admire, Tolu Michael, it's now left for you to redirect and say, okay, the way people know me, is it how I really want them to know me? Or there has to be like other ways? Because we have accidental personal brand and then we have actual personal brand that are built out.
Do you want to break that down?
Oh, definitely. So accidental personal brand is, randomly you're that cute girl that takes pictures on Instagram and everybody just starts to follow you because you always know all the happening towns in the city, you push your food and all. So somehow people always just start to look at your page and think of food content, right? But that might not be like what you set out to do with like your life or the skills that you have. And that brings me to the question I really like to ask clients when I work with them is, is this the best use of your talent? Is this the best use of your skills? And when it comes to the whole conversation around talent and skills, is this the best way to showcase it? Yeah. And personal branding, all of the intricacies, all of the things we do in and out is just to make sure that the way you're showcasing it is the best way ever. Right. Yeah, so that's when you now come down to, okay, what to do, what to not do. But the first foundation of the conversation is always more of realignment than building because everyone has a personal brand.
Wow, so everyone has a personal brand.
Definitely.
Okay, so how do we then identify our unique selling point?
What is a unique selling point? What does I'm actually asking you. What does
everybody talks about it.
Yes,
your USP.
Like, we throw these words around.
Yeah.
Most especially in the business space, in the marketing space. But then I always try to be careful not to over-unicize people.
Okay.
If there's a word like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So as someone who grew up, really brilliant, I was the A student from primary school to secondary school to uni, I was that A student here. And somehow I always grew up thinking about myself like, I'm so unique, I'm so special. And that's amazing. But then it also breeds room for mediocrity and, randomness because you just feel like it's your birthright.
Right.
But I'm sorry, being unique is not your birthright.
Okay.
Like it's something you actually have to work your way up to. You need to set systems in place to ensure that you're maintaining that uniqueness. You need to set structures. And it's not like, you're completely different from every other person in the world. So you have to find like that most different thing to identify your USP, right? What makes your USP a USP is how you're standing out and positioning with it. And stand out is not necessarily, everybody in the industry is doing videos, so I would do audio. No. Stand out is saying, even though everyone in the industry is doing videos or everyone in the industry has like a website, right? I'm going to make people not just understand what I'm doing, but why I'm doing it and see it as a movement.
Okay.
So when I think about myself, when I think about the brand I'm building, I'm not just some launch strategist that's out to collect dollars and move, right? I'm building a movement where I understand that, ideas will not just thrive on passion. It will not just thrive on your mood swings. It will not just thrive on, today is a good day, so I'll work on my idea today, or I'll work on my... No, it's not going to work that way. I understand that I'm building a movement to ensure that, people that have ideas move on to have actual products, move on to have profitable products. In the sense that I'm making sure that they're solving profitable problems and they're staying sustainable at it. So I always like to replace lasting with sustainable. They're almost the same thing, but the sustainable speaks more from a systems, more from a structured angle than just lasting. Lasting gives a lasting impression and all those things that really sound random. But yeah.
You said so much great stuff. Okay, let's talk about social media. What impact, what role does social media play in all of this?
Come on, this 2024, as at the time of the recording, you might be listening to this like years from now.
Yeah.
But then I always like to tell people that social media is, I even said on my story this morning, social media is that global stage that you have, right? And it's so easy, as young people, we're excited, we're fun going guys. We always want to share the new haul that we got, this cool stuff that we maybe signed up for, the gifts that we got, and all of those things, right? But I always like to tell people, when it comes down to social media at the end of the day, I want you to just imagine that you've been maybe given a slot to speak at CNN, or you've been given a slot to, speak to a crowd in maybe like some stadium. What would you say and what would you not say? Because that's what it is at the end of the day. It might look really random, like, 1,000 people just watch me. That's 1,000 freaking people. Like, count it in terms of the actual numbers. Yeah, so it doesn't make sense that you have the opportunity, you have the attention, you have the interest of a lot of people, and all you're doing is just randomness. So how do we tie this down to, building a brand and a perception? You want to ask yourself, when people see you, what do you want them to know you for? And that's the question we ask every time. But now I always like to pin it down to say there are two reactions people have when they meet you. Yeah. There's the, oh my goodness, I know you. And then they open their camera and then they want to take a quick selfie.
Right.
And then there's the, oh my goodness, thank you so much. They are two different things.
I see you talking.
I know you. It's like, you're that our fan girl. You supply us with gist. You're the vibe giver. And while it's amazing to be the vibe giver and the energy person in the room, right? How long will vibe last? So you always want to be that. There are certain people in my life that I'm literally praying for, I'm excited about. I would wave off things because this person is involved. Right. And that's what it is at the end of the day. We may have never met these people like physically in the room, but we know how much impact it is that they're bringing. And someone will roll their eyes and be like, okay, so does it mean every single post, every single carousel has to be impact driven, right? But then I also like to tie it to a sentence that stands out from a book that I really respect, which is, whatever things are true, whatever things are honest, whatever things are of good report, think on these things. So before you click publish, think of it. Is this true? Is this what is true about you? Are you being honest with this narrative that you're pushing, right? It might look like, it's just some post, but it's not just some post. There are people receiving this thing. So the same way you will not intentionally poison the food that you want to serve someone, you should try to be careful that your post, is not intentionally poisoning the minds of people.
Wow. There's so much delicacy to this.
Honestly. It just has to be.
Right.
We really cannot be random with how people see us anymore. And permit me to just chip this in here, most especially because we're talking to like a young demographics. The way there's racism.
Right.
And then there is, there's racism, there are like typical stereotypes. So it's like, you're this gender, so there are some things you won't have. Being a young person already positions you for some type of stereotype. It's just like, you're young, like, what do you really know? How much do you really know? Now it's left for you to not water down and feed into that stereotype already. On one hand, you're trying to be that person of value who shares wisdom. Why are you showcasing foolishness in the same plate? Do you get? And it's so easy for us as young people to, it doesn't really matter like that. But then it matters at the end of the day. You do not want to be vulnerable to the point where you're watering down your value, because it is still how we see. Sorry, we have like two eyes, but then we're seeing one thing. So it's going to be hard for us to see you as a victor and a victim at the same time. So you need to choose, how exactly do you want us to see you? And this ties down to now saying, oh, it's when people see you as a value person or a person of value. That's when you say, oh, pay me thousands of dollars for this, they will pay. That's when you say, oh, I'm hosting this event, be there, they would be there, regardless of your age. Your age is, a demographic. It's not your identity at the end of the day. So it's just important that you move it out of the way and do what you would do like you're some 60-year-old, because you'll soon be 60 at the end of the day.
Don't bring it so close. Okay, I really love this conversation, and I think it's also important to speak to personalities. There are people who are introverts, there are people who are extroverts. How do we marry this?
Okay,
as it relates to
let's try
branding?
a quick test.
Okay.
What do you think I am?
I think you're a mix of both.
Why
to
do
be
you think
honest. So I see your content online. I see your calmness. I see your personality. Your persona basically reflects through your content. And maybe also because I'm from the communication industry, I can analyze that. But I've also seen you at functions where you are bubbly, but even in the bubbliness, there's still the sense of calmness in it. So you answer my question.
Okay, so in actual real life, take personality test to identify what you are. I'm an introvert.
Right.
But then you're an introvert, you're not sick. You don't have HIV, sorry. It's not a disease. So don't make it one. You need to be what you need to be at the end of the day. You can be introverted, but understand that you're a person of value, so you stay bold.
Right.
And that's what it is at the end of the day. So it's not a thing of, let's not lie, let's not steal. It's not your introvertedness that is pushing you away. You're maybe not just confident about what it is that you have on the inside. You've not honed your value. You haven't set structures to dig deeper. And that's why, obviously, I'm going to bring this table, down to Miss Felicia's book, right? Where it talks about honing your strengths. Because that's one of the books that really just helped me say, oh, I'm actually not sick. It's just a personality, right? And I need to identify, okay, what is strength for me and what is not strength for me. Now, it's also still leaning to what matters. So for me, I thrive on communication. Like, I know how to speak. Bring me to write. Is when I have to write, I have to be thinking so much. But then when I have to speak, when I have to say it, it's a lot easier. So find your mojo, right? Not everybody's going to be able to make videos. Right. And that doesn't mean, because you don't enjoy talking or you don't enjoy speaking, you should now rule that out completely. But just saying, since this is where my strengths lie, I'm going to prioritize this and then set structures for the areas that I'm weak, not necessarily rule it out completely.
Right.
So I still write, but then now it's from a structured and disciplined angle. We're not relying on motivation. We're not relying on moods. Because if you want to rely on mood, you'll almost not do anything sustainable. So don't personality shame yourself.
Okay.
Yes, because we do this thing where it's like, but I'm reserved or I'm shy and I don't know. But it's still personality shaming at the end of the day. You're not sick, really.
Wow.
It's not
there's something called personality shaming.
Yes, definitely.
Interesting. What's the likelihood that being consistent would aid or attract opportunities to people? How should people position themselves for opportunities?
Okay, so this is the mass, and we use this mass where we're trying to advise people to maybe go to school. So you say something like, if you're trying to say that going to school will take 4 years, and you don't have that for the 4 years, like 2024 to 2028 will still come and go, whether you took that degree or not. Now, that's the same way it is with consistency. Most times there's the whole, will people watch or will people not watch? Let's say we decide to end this podcast and ideally, maybe our plan was to get, 100 million people for the first listen. And we now start to think, would they listen? Now, if we wanted to get 100 million people, but then we don't record the podcast at all because we're like, will people listen? We're getting 0.
Sure.
But then imagine we it goes live and we maybe get 100,000 as opposed to 100. We got 100,000. Now let's bring it back to consistency. What's the guarantee that consistency would help you attract opportunities? You not putting yourself out there is already 0. Consistency would have maybe given you 500 or 1,000 or 15. But you saying, because I'm not sure if it will, let's just leave, that's already 0. Now, you also need to understand what consistency means and what the people that you want to attract are looking out for. Nobody's a dummy. Nobody's just throwing money around. And then there are 10,000 other consistent people like you. So this is where, it still boils down to the fact that you're a brand, you are a choice, or do you get like you're an option, in the sea of choices that people have. And it's just important that you always see yourself as that. It still brings me down to what I had said in my intro, where it's like, there's this, you're unique, you're special, and because of that you think you're one. I'm sorry, you're not one of one, you're not the only one. There are a lot of other people here. So with consistency, there are more chances for people to see you. There are more chances for people to discover your work. There are more chances for people to refer you. When it comes to maybe a point of proposal, you would have more things as opposed to someone that is not consistent, because now you say, I have killed the bear and the lion, so now I can do this, right? So this is one of the things that consistency opens you up to at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so what are some of the key entrepreneurial skills that young people can begin to leverage, as it relates to personal branding?
The first skill would definitely be a soft skill, right? And that's perception. I'm sorry, if you like meet Tolani Ali or TY to give you some mad-ass headshots and, work with the best graphic designer to help you come up with a quality website and, do all of those things. If you don't see yourself as that person, you don't see yourself as that person. So it's first a thing of inner perception, and then that inner perception comes out. But somebody's like, how does it affect buying and selling? Because if you don't see what you're creating, the product you're putting together, the offer you're putting together, if you don't first see it as valuable, people will bargain, you will be faced with price objections and just feel like, is there really something about me, right? So if you don't have a solid perception about what it is that you're building and the product you have, we'll be begging you to market your product. And that's not how it's supposed to be. I'm not marketing because, they're bills to be paid at the end of the month. I'm marketing because I see the transformation that is attached to the product I have created. And I know that people will suffer if I don't put it out there.
Wow.
That's what marketing is. So most times when it comes to having that entrepreneurial mindset, we always say, know how to shoot videos, know how to edit, know how to talk about your product, know how to stand in front of the camera and hustle your market here. But then until you see it, all the things they would advise you to do would just, fall down the drain. So if there's only one skill you can learn, just learn the skill of perception. And that's the skill that personal branding thrives on, because the perception you have of yourself, you're now trying to sell that narrative so that other people can have that perception of you and then come to your team. Do you see?
Okay, amazing. As we round up the conversation, what are your last words for young people?
See yourself like an institution. If Nigeria was a, proper place, the way there are thriving ministries, so there's Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Petroleum, Ministry of all of the ministries, right? And then every ministry has what they are responsible for. As a young person, whether you're building a personal brand because you want to, please build because you want to monetize it. But whether you're building a personal brand or whatever it is you're doing, you need to see yourself as an institution. Ask yourself questions. Okay, what part of me will be responsible for achieving this result? As young people, we're excited. We always have goals that change every 2 working days, right? But then what ministry in your life would be responsible for that? Even down to this personal brand conversation, you've sat down. If you're listening to this part of the podcast, it means that you've listened the entire time. Don't just end it like, wow, that was some solid shit. Ask yourself, okay, what part of me will be responsible for implementing this thing that I have learned? And that's where systems come in, that's where routines come in, that's where having templates come in, that's where seeking guidance, seeking mentorship and all of those things come in, because you see yourself as an institution. So you're willing to invest in yourself, you're willing to take yourself serious, you're willing to delay what is important now. And there's one thing I've been saying recently, you're willing to delay good so that you can have best, because there are a lot of good opportunities, but sometimes these things come like distraction. So you want to say, no, I'm reserving my strength, my energy for the best, and I'm going for it.
Wow, that's some deep stuff. Delay good for the best. And we're wrapping it up on that note. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Debbie, for sharing all this insightful information. We definitely know that you added value. Thank you guys. Have a great one. Bye.
Bye.